tokusatsu, taking the form of many shows including Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and Metal Heroes. And today, a group of fans come together to review it for you as Toku Secrets.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Toku Secrets podcast presented by AnimeSecrets.org. I'm your host, Boken Silver, Nif in the South. Today we're going to be starting a brand new journey. Last time that you guys joined us when we did a series, we finished up Juken Sentai Geki Ranger. Didn't really enjoy that. We were planning to do a podcast where we compared it to Jungle Fury, but we decided not to do that because that would be a massive bloodbath. So with that being said, we're actually going to be taking a break from Super Sentai for the next couple of weeks to review a brand new, different tokusatsu series, Gridman the Hyper Agent, or Lightning Superhuman Gridman. It was called, as it was called in Japan, or at least that's what it's translated as.
Yeah, Denko Chojin Gridman, if you wanted to be more specific.
Exactly. I'm going to let the rest of the crew, we have the whole crew on. Oh, you just heard Patrick, Shink, and Red. Yes. So I'll let the other two guys introduce themselves real quick. Go ahead, guys.
I'm Red, also known as Gokai Red, and I'm so glad we're done with Geki Ranger.
One last jab at that series, huh?
That's not the last jab.
Okay. All right.
It's my new whipping boy.
Oh,
noted.
God.
I'm Anthony, also known as Kyoryu Green, and I'm just having a ball just hearing him talk trash about the show.
So a couple of things about Gridman. The main thing, Patrick is going to give us a little bit more information since he knows more. But the few things that I'm going to note is that this was adapted. So it aired from 1993 to 1994. So basically the same year that the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was airing. And it was adapted into an American show called Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. Which, I mean, I've heard about that show. I've never actually watched it. I hear that it's really bad.
It's okay. It actually has an interesting production history because Tsuburaya actually had a direct hand in it, unlike Toei did with Power Rangers. So there was a lot of shared assets like sound effects and like Gridman's stat screen was used and mirrored into the show with Servo's name on it. So it was different in that regard, but it was even more confusing when Cyber Squad was like 10 episodes longer than Gridman was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. Because crap, what was his name? The guy who played Sam Collins, the lead. Because he went on, I think, to Boy Meets World after the show ended or something?
Matthew Lawrence.
Matthew Lawrence. Thank you, Matthew Lawrence. Yeah. He ended up leaving the show after they adapted the Gridman finale to go join in on that show, which was his biggest role, actually, but not even close. But after he left, they chose to keep the show going for like another 10 episodes, and to do that, they just reused monsters.
Oh, wow.
It was really stupid. And it's, like I said, it's even more confusing because Tsuburaya directly worked on this. So, it's just one of those funny behind-the-scenes things that makes no sense.
He was, the one of the main guys was in Boy Meets World?
Yeah, the guy who actually...
Matthew Lawrence.
Yeah, Matthew Lawrence. He was the lead. He was the guy who fused with the Servo.
Yeah.
Who was Gridman's counterpart. Yeah, so he was the main character.
This makes me want to meet Matthew Lawrence even more now, because I like his other work a lot.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal actor. I like his work.
He actually wasn't that bad in Cyber Squad either. So
I know this has nothing to do with anything, but I do remember this one Boy Meets World episode where he and one of his friends is going on a date with like a bunch of triplets, and then they turn to this one guy who says like, "Hey, you want to go on a date?" And then the guy's like, "Can my brothers go with me?" And then those guys are triplets, and that guy was actually played by the Death Filippo twins, the Prey of Euphoria. Which okay, I know that there's a lot of drama revolving around that. I just wanted to point out that that kind of weird connection.
Interesting little.
And speaking of the production team that did this, Subaraya Productions, they're mainly famous in the tokusatsu community for creating the Ultraman series, which isn't surprising since Gridman does kind of resemble Ultraman a lot
Yeah,
in
it
design.
is an Ultraman spin-off, and they tried to make it its own separate continuity because there was a sequel in the works called Gridman Sigma, who we actually saw in that Studio Trigger demo reel that they did. Where they basically did an animated highlights of this show, the original Gridman, and Sigma showed up at the very end of it. But elements of that show ended up in Quad S Gridman, which is still a loose sequel to this. So some elements of that show did end up getting used later. But a couple of notes I want to add on this before we jump into the show. Cyber Squad was actually one of only 2 times an Ultraman-esque show was officially released in the United States for English television. The other one was the hilariously bad 4Kids Ultraman Tiga dub.
I remember that show.
When Fox Kids died and they went to the Fox box, that was one of their premiere things. And
I'm sure it was bad.
Oh no, God! They didn't even finish dubbing it.
No,
they only dubbed.
Just like how 4Kids didn't finish dubbing Yu-Gi-Oh! GX or Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds.
Yeah,
no.
They.
I'm like, they're terrible for doing that. Like,
I think it was. There's this YouTube channel called Vintage Henshin. I think he did a video about the behind the scenes of that. They only dubbed half of Tiga, and only half of it actually premiered on TV. The other half of the dub didn't release until they released the dub on Blu-ray like 10 years ago or something. It was really bizarre. And this show was also notable from a Subaraya perspective because this was the first series they did that utilized something called D2 digital video for their special effects. It allowed for more smooth capture, basically like one of the earliest forms of HD recording. So that's probably why, especially when the Sentai that was airing at this time was Die Ranger, this show looks so much cleaner and of higher quality than Die Ranger does, because it was filmed on pretty high-end technology for the time. It allowed them to do cleaner slow motion shots and everything. So they ended up using this technology for Ultraman shows going forward, but this was the first show that used it. So
interesting.
Yeah. Which is funny because Sentai didn't go HD until Bokenger. And Ultraman went HD in 1993.
Yeah. That's actually something I did want to bring up before we jump into it. Like, it does honestly look like this series aired at least in the mid 2000s, just from the cinematography aspect of it.
Yeah, no, because I know that Riz hasn't seen Die Ranger, but visually it looks the same as Jetman does. So that should tell you how much more production value this show had.
Or I mean, even Jew Ranger, which aired the year before this. So,
but that's probably more to do with the fact that Toei is mostly known for their animation department, while Subaraya is mostly known for Ultraman. So they probably put a bigger budget into their live action stuff.
Yeah,
because if you've seen more modern Ultraman shows, they make Sentai and Kamen Rider look like YouTube independent films.
I'm gonna have to check more of that out then.
Yeah, modern Ultraman shows are really, really intense looking. Modern day Hollywood level stuff. It's kind of crazy.
Well, anyway, we're going to jump into the first 10 episodes of this series, guys. Just go over them bit by bit. This series so far has been pretty episodic, so we don't really have any major story arcs to cover. So we got episode 1, The Birth of a New Hero. In this episode, we, of course, get introduced to our 3 main characters, Naoto Sho, Yuka Inoue, and Ippei Baba. They're both 3 tech-savvy kids who they create their own computer video game system called Junk. Ippei creates a character named Gridman, and we also meet a one of their classmates. He's a misfit who's kind of just a social outcast named Takeshi Todo. I don't know if his name has been stated in the series thus far, but that's what it said on the wiki, so I'm just going with that.
He does mention his name like once. I heard that they said
Yeah.
Takashi like once, but that's about it.
Okay. So Takeshi gets approached by an evil program called Khan Digifer. He's this demon who is attempting to take over. Well, okay, we'll find out more about the motivation in the next episode, but he offers to help Takeshi get revenge on people who have wronged him, and he uses this power to turn these digital monsters that Takeshi likes to make in his free time into actual monsters. In this case, he turns one into like a dinosaur-looking thing called Gillarus, and it begins wreaking havoc on the computer world. And at the same time, Naoto's younger brother Daichi, he is about to be killed because the cyber attack that's so pretty much what happens is that these monsters attack the computer world, computers that are connected to certain, like big parts of everyday life, which in this case is a hospital. And because of the cyber attack, the machine that's being used on Naoto's younger brother is like reacting violently, and that's threatening Daiichi's life. So Naoto and his friends, they rush to Junk, and they find their character Gridman is possessed by an interdimensional police officer also called Gridman. And Naoto was given this device that allows him to allows to pass into the computer world so he can merge with Gridman to fight as one, and they defeat Gillarus. But there's a couple of complications, like the fact that Gridman's power is directly connected to Junk, so if it crashes, then Gridman will no longer exist. And it pretty much plays out like a standard episode where Naoto defeats the monster, and that's pretty much it. We'll find out more about the backstory in the next episode. Anybody want to start off giving their thoughts on this opening episode?
Let me let me drop some of the voice roles things here before we get into the real conversation, because this is some fun stuff.
Cool.
I tried to find info on the 4 main face actors that we see, and this is like the only major thing they've all done. It's when we get to Khan Digifer and Gridman when things get a little bit interesting. So Khan Digifer's voice actor is Haru Sato. I only looked up and noted some roles that I know that the 4 of us and other people might know. His 2 biggest roles in anime that I was able to find was Master Roshi in the original anime for Dragon Ball Z, or I think it was Super Onward. But for tokusatsu senses, and Nate and Anthony, you're gonna have to help me pronounce this guy's name. He's the voice actor for Wicked Life God Dizu Moya, the main antagonist of Abba Ranger. Yes,
Abba Ranger, the villain about Abba Ranger.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I was like, I recognize his name, but I don't know how to pronounce that.
We'll just call him Dez.
Dez. Yo, Dez, what's up? Gridman's voice actor is Hikaru Midoriyakawa. I think I pronounced that correctly. We were talking about this behind the scenes. He's the voice of the original Toei from the what is now known as Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0. That's pretty funny. He's also the voices of Android 16 and Paikuhan and Dragon Ball. For Anthony and Riz, he's the voice of Splashmon and Cross Wars. That I didn't know.
Wow.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. But as for Super Sentai, he's the voice of Salamandrus in Go-Go 5.
Oh, that's Olympius' counterpart.
Yes. And Bakuru Top Galler, Abare Killer's mech from Abba Ranger.
Wow.
I think that's how you pronounce that.
We have a lot of pedigree here.
Oh, they're still voicing today, like both of them.
Oh yeah, I mean,
But and Gridman voice actor also did return for Quad S. And so, in case anybody's wondering, he's a little bit older, so his voice is gruff, but he did reprise his role in Quad S Gridman. So yeah, for when we get to Abba Ranger, you have some more notes to put to your for your character previous roles thing. Because behind the scenes things, we are planning on to do Abba Ranger at some point in the near future. So
Yeah. And I did also read this, like, just recently, that apparently the guy who plays Yuka's father is Daisuke Ban. He actually, according to this, that I'm reading right here, he was in Battle Fever J. He was the second Battle Cossack, the Orange Ranger in Battle Fever J. And he was also apparently the main character in the Metal series, the original Keykider. So,
oh wow.
yeah.
That's actually a pretty big role. I know he looked familiar from somewhere. That's probably where it was.
So we got a couple of big names here.
Yeah.
But what do we think of the opening episode, guys?
I'll let you guys speak because I'm the one who's seen this before.
Anthony, you want to go first?
Yeah, I liked the first beginning episode of it, but I'm still kind of iffy on it because like I'm so used to quadruple S Gridman as we're calling it now. Because I'm not gonna say SS Gridman. That's too long.
Yeah.
It's the anime was actually like much better. Handled this much better, in my personal opinion, because it wasn't even that long. I think it was like only 12 episodes. I think.
Yeah.
And as opposed to this being like 39 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
That's so like, and I know this is like loosely remember this is like the first Gridman, but I don't know. I'm just maybe I just need to watch it a little bit more to be like, oh wow, this is actually really good because it's following that that episodic formula that most shows can get away with, but I don't know, for some reason I'm just not really like feeling it like that right now.
I did mention this to these guys offhand. Unlike the shows that we're used to watching with Sentai, Power Rangers, Kamen Rider, where they do like arcs and spurts, and then they have like a few episodes of just like semi-meaningless filler episodes. There's not story arcs in the show per se. Everything just kind of slow burns throughout the season.
Yeah.
Everything kind of bleeds into the next episode. It's a lot more subtle with its progression of characters and everything. So it's a very different show than what we're used to watching, that's for sure. So I'm not surprised that it doesn't necessarily gel with you at first, but I don't know.
But I don't hate it. I don't hate it though.
Yeah, neither do I.
I actually liked it. I thought it was a pretty cool episode.
Yeah, I like the introduction. I think the action scene was pretty cool with how Gridman transforms, and I do like the designs of like Gridman and like Ultraman characters. So it was pretty cool. There's not really much to complain about because I mean I've seen like I think that the explanation the plot flows pretty naturally, especially since I think it makes more sense how Naoto knows what to do as Gridman already, because you could argue that maybe it's not necessarily him doing everything, it's just Gridman, and Gridman's already been doing this for a while. So I think it makes sense.
So part of what I wanted to say for episode 1, we have to remember when Gridman came out. Gridman came out in the olden, not really in the olden era, because that's not true, because Ranger and all the other stuff came out, but Gridman came out at a time where these type of shows were more episodic rather than story driven and plot driven. So I kind of walked into this kind of expecting not to have too much characterization, not to have any deep stories, and honestly, that way of coming into it helped a lot because I was able to enjoy it for what it was.
Yeah.
And it's basically, for me, it's more fun than maybe for you guys because it has a lot of like old computing and very 90s cyber space type stuff, which is one of my favorite genres in the world, actually. So
Yeah,
Oh,
I like to watch some of those shows too back in the day. So I definitely enjoyed that aspect of it.
yeah.
yeah,
There's something sweet about the cyberspace sets that they use for the Gridman fight scenes. Like they're so
yeah,
colorful and like the lighting is different. Like the episodes where the lighting is dark and you can see Gridman's eyes glow in the darkness and stuff. That's really sick.
yeah, and like the biggest thing here is this is a season or like a TV show, I guess you can say, because there's not like a next season of it coming out after. But this is a TV show that would not work today. At least
What
I
makes
don't
you
think it
say
would.
that?
Because technology's too complicated now.
No, it's
Yeah,
just
true.
the idea that they're presenting here. They wouldn't hold the same weight. Like in the 90s, if you said, "Hey, these kids are building a computer," you would say, "Oh, that they're really smart. They're really talented." If you tell people, "Hey, kids are building computers today," they're gonna say, "Okay, cool.
Like,
What's
Yeah,
the
cool.
deal?"
who
Anyway,
has
okay, cool.
this? Yeah,
So it's not that technology's advanced; it's that people have gotten more used to computers.
yeah,
Gridman works because at that time there was still that awe and mystery of how technology really worked.
hmm
And like I'm gonna comment every now and then in the episode reviews how I find certain things that they do and certain assumptions they make funny because they don't actually work that way.
yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's the fun of the fantasy element, you know.
Yeah. So I liked it. I thought it was a pretty good episode. There's obviously going to be some faults with it not being a more modern type of toku where it is character and story driven, but that's fine.
But I also like, how in general, like probably one of my favorite aspects is just how like it shows like how much of an impact like computers have on like everyday life. Like, and we'll go into more detail in like some of these other episodes, but just the fact that like this guy is attacking computers in a hospital and like it almost kills a bunch of people, like it really shows how much of an impact like just these cyber attacks can have on people. And I actually like that aspect of it. But what do we want to give this out of 10? I'll personally give it a, as someone who's not really used to the Ultraman genre, I'm probably going to give it an 8 actually, because I was actually genuinely entertained by it. So I'll actually give it an 8.
Yeah, very, very. It doesn't force all the info we need down our throats at once, like Sentai first episodes tend to do, especially more modern Sentai episodes of first episodes. So
Mhm.
I liked it.
You know,
What about Riz and Anthony?
I'm gonna give it
you
an
know,
8.
I'm gonna give it a 7.
Okay.
So I didn't hate it. I just, I think maybe I'll warm up to it like a little bit more because like the episodes onward were actually better. It's just like there's actually there's like one there's like one issue I have with this show, and it's not any of the like our like characters like Gridman or like the main cast. It's really honestly someone you probably already know. Like, oh well, that makes sense.
Yeah, if it's if it's Takashi, then yes, I was
Yes,
I was
yeah.
almost. This is one of the things that I was waiting for this review for was how you three would react to him. He's almost comedic at times with how overreactive he is.
It's like Jesus Christ, dude. Like, it's not that serious.
Yes. But before we move on to the second episode, I want to explain something to Anthony and Riz. I actually talked to Nathan about this before everybody got on. The subs we're watching, the ones that Riz put on Plex, they're not good at all.
No.
The story behind these there's actually two subs for this show. There's the ones that we're watching, which, believe it or not, are actually from Amazon.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. And I
And
confirmed this the other day when I was looking
yeah,
on Tubi because
Mhm.
Tubi has the exact same subs.
Yes, and
Hmm.
from what little research I was able to do on this, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I can believe it given how jank they are. They didn't translate it in-house. They actually reached out to one of the only subbing crews who actually did a sub of the show. They just happened to be from one of the Latin American countries who did a Spanish sub for the show and asked them to do an English version.
Hmm.
And that's why it's janky in some places. And then a couple of years ago, Mill Creek Media released a Blu-ray release of the show. I have it. It's actually a pretty good collection. But they use these subtitles as the foundation for theirs. So they're not much better than these.
Yeah, I've
So if you want better subtitles, these are the better subtitles.
no. If you want better subtitles, you have to be the subtitle maker.
Yeah. I mean, they're
Because
not
otherwise,
bad
you're
enough
gonna
to where they're not bad enough to where I don't understand what's happening. You have to do a little bit of vocalization in your head as you're watching it at times, but it's still pretty
yeah.
annoying when you hear someone say "make a chaos" or something. What the heck are you trying to say?
Well, there are certain points during the season watch where I stopped the video, I rewound, and I watched it again.
So you could
Figure out what
translate it
the heck
yourself
they're saying.
better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
you'll
have to go
need
off
to
of, like
do that.
context clues a little bit too. Like, it's not perfect, but I do want to note that there are places out there where you can watch it for free with no account, like Tubi. They do
Mhm.
have the full season on there, and it's pretty good quality. Like, honestly, it looks like 480 or 720p to me. I can't tell which one, but it's pretty high res.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it is 480 because that's what Gridman was filmed in.
Yes. So just a note for those of you out there who would, if you watch this and you want to see it, be careful. The subs are jank, and there's nothing we can really do about that.
Okay, well, we'll move on to the second episode now. Real quick, this is called The Secrets of Acceptor. So, just going to go off a couple of notes with just like the basic plots. At the end of the previous episode, Junk actually crashed, but luckily Naoto and his friends are able to fix it. And we learn more about Gridman. He is from the Hyper World. He's a interdimensional police officer from the Hyper World who chased Digifer to the computer world. Digifer is an evil demon bent on conquering the computer world. And Gridman needs Naoto because he's only data and can't fight without a physical partner. And he picked Naoto due to his having like a heart of justice when Naoto wanted to save his brother. The only big thing that happens here is that Takeshi, when he's battling Takeshi's new Bomura monster, there's a point where Gridman can't enter because there's like a huge barrier, like I guess in computer terms it would be a firewall, that prevents him from entering it, and Yuka and Ippei have to break it down with a virus that they create. And Naruto was able to defeat him, but there's a brief moment where where the monster almost breaks out of the computer world and enters the human world, and Naoto's brother Daiichi actually sees it. Other than that, I mean, we get some basic ideas of like who these people are. Like we obviously know that Naoto is more of like just a like typical strong hero justice type of guy. Yuka's more of the smart person. Like she has an interest in going to college to learn everything about computers, and Ippei is more of just a goof off who loves to play video games and everything. Um, Pretty good episode. I don't really see anything to complain about it, but what did you guys think of the second episode?
I liked it.
Okay.
I thought Patrick was going to get some kind of update before we chimed in.
Huh?
I thought Patrick was going to say something before I chimed in, so I was waiting for him.
Yeah, I'll just give my brief thoughts on this one. I like this one because it's the first time we get a taste of what Kandijifer's really trying to do, because he wants to leave cyberspace to rule both worlds simultaneously. I mean, where have we heard this before? Looking
Hi,
at you,
Eva.
yeah, Evok, Vamdemon, and Digimon Adventure, you name it. There's plenty of people who want to do stuff.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how he goes for it now. Like episode 2, he already makes a break for it. He doesn't mess around as a villain, and I kind of dig that. And we'll see him progressively get a little bit more desperate as the season goes along, because things don't go his way, obviously. But it's cool to see a villain make a Hail Mary as like one of their first moves. You don't see that too often.
Riz, were you going to say something? Riz, were you going to chime
Hey,
in?
my mic decided to stop working. Hang on.
Of course it did.
There we go. Okay. So I liked it. I liked that we got more information on what Gridman is, where he comes from, and all the stuff about Digifer. I also find it funny that the only person in the three of them that's actually a tech person is Yuka. At least as far as I can tell. But that's about it. Like those are my takes on it. I like it. It's good. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, there's not much of an in-depth thing I think we can really give, since there's not much story, but these episodes are genuinely good. It's just there's not really much to analyze, at least as of right now.
Yeah.
But I'd probably give this episode also, like, I'm probably gonna, this is probably gonna be a trend. I'm probably gonna give these episodes between 7s and 8s, just because there's nothing that like really groundbreaking about them, but I'm getting a lot of entertainment from them, and I'm glad that I'm watching it. So I'm probably going to give this an 8 too, just because there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8, and I'm gonna also add a comment here. Of the 10 episodes I watched of Gridman so far, you will hear me say almost every episode, this is standard Toku. There's nothing groundbreaking. There's nothing utterly amazing about it, but it's also not terrible.
Right.
So, I'm gonna keep giving it also like an 8. In this case, I'm giving it an 8.
Like, there's no John Kondo character to really annoy you this time, is there, Riz?
There's no Dawn. There's no Love Square. There's no Takaru. We're chilling, all right.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of the things I do like about the seasons compared to Sentai. It's a lot more grounded, and how do I put this? Like, it's paced kind of like how real life would be, where it's like baby steps at a time, instead of having these 2 episodes where something massive pushes the story forward immediately and stuff like that. So,
Anthony, what do you want to give this episode?
I'm gonna give it another 7.
Cool. All right, well, you can move on to episode 3, Imminent Telephone Panic, where where the new monster Volcadon, a volcano-based monster, attacks the city's telephone office to try and destroy communications. And Unfortunately, this happens when Naoto's little brother Daiichi and Ippei's sister Kana get trapped inside of a truck, and they can't call for help since the cell phone is disabled. Um, the only big thing to kind of note here is that people become a bit more aware of Gridman's existence because, as you recall, at the end of the previous episode, Daiichi appeared, actually reported to have seen Gridman, and he was appearing on live TV in an interview claiming that he did, although some people think that he's just crazy. Which kind of makes sense, since I don't think this is a world where they're used to seeing heroes all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good episode. I don't know what else to really say about this one.
I think this episode is pretty notable because going back to my thing of everything being a slow burn throughout the whole season, this is the first episode where people start to become aware of what's happening. Something will come of this as we go forward, where more stuff starts happening, people start to question what's going on, and then at a little over halfway in, it all kind of just drops on people. So this is a bit of I guess you can call a slow burn story arc. I don't know if you want to call it a story arc, but this is the beginning of something kind of notable for later.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't the slow burn in this case is not bad because while it's slow burn and while it might feel very episodic, they're still very genuinely entertaining.
Yeah.
Like in the episode 3, the thing I liked the most was the minor characters like Daiichi and Kana actually have some plot. They're actually doing something. It's not like groundbreaking, here's a story advancement, but it's still a fun time. Like, you can say, oh, these are cute kids having fun, and that's it. And that's fine. It's perfectly fine to have stuff like that happening every now and then.
Yeah, their families are very prominent.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that as well.
Yeah.
Also, I do like the uniqueness we're going to see throughout this batch of episodes where they take over very interesting parts of technology using this wide concept of cyberspace.
Yeah, it's nice,
Um,
especially compared to Sentai, where it's just go out and make people scream for like the 40th straight episode.
yeah, Senkenzer, Geki Ranger, I think
Yeah,
Juken are the two.
yeah, like
So we've been having a lot of screaming in the last couple of seasons of Sentai that we've watched.
yeah,
And then with Decade, we did all the screaming because, dear God.
yeah. This
So
season, I didn't really catch on to this until I started rewatching this again. But that is a problem with Super Sentai, is that a lot of the monsters that they have to fight every day's whole mission is just go bother people. Like there's rarely a rhyme or a reason for them to go out there other than just to be a dick.
Yeah. I'll probably give this episode a 7. Nothing really stands out about it, but there's nothing wrong with it either.
I guess I'm just gonna just keep giving the 7s for this show.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drop this to 7.5 to be different, but also I don't think this is worthy of being a 7 on its own.
Yeah.
Patrick?
Yeah, I said it was about a 7 also.
Okay.
All right, that moves on us to episode 4, Runaway Car, where there's this new computerized car. Well, new back then. I mean, this is pretty standard stuff nowadays. Where a computerized car that Naoto's father is riding in, with a client, and the latest monster attacks the car and sends it spinning out of control, and threatening to kill Naoto's father. I found this episode entertaining, actually. Like, I just love, like, the whole high-speed car chase and, like, how, the car is just out of control and it's more of a comic relief thing. I don't know. I can't really explain what really touched me, but I was actually laughing a lot when this episode happened, so it definitely did something right. I really enjoyed this episode. What
Yeah,
about you guys?
yeah. It's like I'm gonna jump in the back seat. You drive.
Exactly.
That was the best part of it, actually, was watching them try to drive and also figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Like Nate said, I was laughing quite a bit for this episode as well. Like, again, nothing groundbreaking. It's just general, just good fun.
Yeah, I did. I did find myself laughing at it a lot, especially towards like when they actually, get the car to stop and they're almost gonna hit the police officer. Like, ah.
Oh yeah, that
Oh.
police officer he almost hits at the very end. It actually becomes a recurring character.
And I like that. Like, he's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, he's kind of like their local, kind of like neighborhood cop or something who constantly gets
Yeah.
caught up in people's shenanigans.
He's like, what are those crazy kids up to nowadays?
Yeah, pretty much. That does become his role after.
Do we, I'd probably give this a, yeah, I'll probably give it an 8 out of 10 just because I found it really entertaining.
I'm gonna move this to an 8.5 because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's weird. This wasn't the one I was expecting to get the best reception from. this is
I mean,
probably the most insignificant episode of the bunch, but
it is.
But it's
It's
entertaining.
significant,
Yeah,
but like I
it's-
said earlier, this season is not geared to be very intricate, right? Like,
yeah.
it's more meant to be a fun ride that you just enjoy, and hope you don't crash along the way. No pun intended about the episode, by the way.
No, there was a pun intended.
Oh, don't try and start that. There was not.
Yeah, it's a 7 too.
Anthony?
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna give it an 8 just for making me laugh that much.
There you go. We broke Anthony's 7.
That brings us to episode 5, The Perfect Sword with a Man's Pride. So here, Takeshi's latest monster attacks, a shipping warehouse, disrupting the city's food supply and kind of plunging it into chaos. The big thing that happens in this episode is that Ippei, who's inspired by like his favorite like hot dog food, creates a sword and shield weapon called the Barrier Shield, which he's able to use to scare the monster off. Anthony was mentioning something about how crazy Takeshi comes off in this series, and I think this episode was like the worst. Like he's out, he's out just walking around him, and I think I can't remember what exactly happens, but one way or another, he gets into he gets like physically knocked off his feet, or something happens, and all these women.
I can explain exactly what happened. Okay.
Yeah.
So the guy was trying to push all of his like freight, and he can't see because it's all like it's covering his vision, so he can't see. It's so high that all the items are just all in his face. He just can't see anything. He's walking towards the front now. Takashi, being the dummy that he is just like walking backwards, like, oh, what do I do? Go the other direction. Look, you have plenty of room to go somewhere else, go other direction around him. He backs into it, and he's like, oh, he falls over, and like all the stuff falls on him, and everybody looks at him and just laughs at him, like yeah, because you clearly should have went out the way. He's like, I'll show you all.
How dare you make me not get out of the way? What?
I'm like, bro, you are. I remember literally watching that part, and I was like, "You're stupid!" like, oh my god.
I was hoping one of you three would go
I do
off on
not
him.
like this kid. I get what they're trying to do with this whole thing of like, oh, he's an outcast. He doesn't really get along with people. I get that what they're trying to do, but they're not
He's
making
insane.
guy at all. Like he's a complete and total whack job. Like
Yeah.
Like these women laugh at him, and then he's all like, "Oh my god, they laughed at me! I will not hear of this! I will not go and ruin everyone's shopping in the world!"
Yeah, I know.
it's like my
way to
God.
make
Yeah,
way to make a mountain out of a molehill, kid. Gee whiz.
Like, it's no wonder you're an outcast if you're that insane, buddy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like no wonder Con Digifer was drawn to you.
You're like the only crazy desperate kid that he would use. Like, oh, I
Yeah,
need someone
because
desperate and needy.
they
Perfect.
established that as a parallel where Gridman was drawn to Nato because of his desire to save his brother. Con Digifer was also drawn to him because of how crazy he is. That's literally how they explained it in show.
And it's like now, don't get me wrong. I have seen my fair share of some crazy antagonists. That's nothing. That's the issue I'm having. It's the fact that how he's being an antagonist is just how it's not really good. You know what I'm saying?
it's comedic, honestly.
Yeah, it's like it's really comedic and stupid in a stupid way. Now, we should be thankful that Mikoto from freaking Alba Ranger didn't meet Digifire, because honestly, I think he would have a little more fun with fun. He would actually be like, this is interesting, causing more damage. That's fun. Let's do it. It's like
You want to say anything else, Riz?
yeah, I'm kind of surprised that nobody else has really called out Ippei for being kind of a dick to his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't like his entire I will only eat hot dogs. I will eat nothing else, and I will
Yeah.
skip dinner and breakfast and lunch to have a hot dog, and I'll be a complete brat about it. That
Yeah.
bugs me a
that
lot.
kid pissed me off too. I'm not gonna lie to you.
He's not the best at the whole thinking part.
No, not at all.
He's your stereotypical. I'm good at the nerd stuff, but everything else I'm kind of a poo head.
Yeah. Like, I'm not smart when it comes to stuff like life, you know.
Yeah. That's pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, this is where we start to see more Ippei's personality kind of come out more, which it's interesting, but he feels very selfish.
It's almost as if if do you guys feel that if I don't know why I shouldn't even try to compare Takashi to this guy, because like Ippei is kind of selfish, yeah, but he's way better than Takashi, at least, thankfully. Jesus Christ.
I was hoping one of you three would go off on him. That was one of the things I was looking forward to the most.
Takashi?
Yeah.
I was like, it's
I have plans for later on to do that. I'm holding off until then. We're not there yet.
I have to get it out.
Yeah. I think I know where you're going with this.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Where do you think I'm going with this?
Is it the microwave episode?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it. Yeah. I knew it.
Yeah.
I'll probably give this a 7 as well. Not much to say.
Yeah. Another cool note is that this is the first monster that kind of gets away.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the
Gridman
monsters destroyed in this episode.
he cuts his stinking arms off, and Condigiver's like, "Oh crap, get him out!"
Get out of there! Get out of there, you idiot!
It shows more. It shows that the villains are more resource conscious than in the past. You know,
Yeah.
like other seasons are like, oh, the monster died. That's no big deal. We'll make a new one.
Yeah. So,
What else do you want to give on these episodes? The rating.
I'll give this one about a 7.
give it a 7 too, because like I would have given it an 8, but it just Takashi just ruined it for me, honestly. Like my God, dude, get out of the way. You cause your own problems.
Yeah, boy.
Riz, what would you give it? Did you already say?
I haven't said yet, but I'm gonna give this a 6 because I hated Ippe's disrespect to his poor mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, episode 6, we got a terror melody, where, oddly enough, in this episode, the monster is actually one that already lived in the computer world. It's called Anocilus, which it actually destroys the monster from the previous episode, and Takashi brainwashes it, wanting to like sabotage music to turn people, turn people evil. Now, thankfully, Gridman does not destroy this monster, but it does get restored to its true nature thanks to Yuka playing her own music. Gridman gets approached by this humanoid person in the computer world named Unison, who is able to use her powers to create a more powerful version of Gridman. It's just called the Gridman sword from here on out. Honestly, I don't remember as much from this episode. Anybody want to chime in more on it? Like, because this episode didn't impact me as much as the others.
This episode genuinely confused me. Like, I just didn't understand what the heck he was hijacking here to make this even happen. Like,
Oh, you mean to spread the noise around?
yeah, like what was he hijacking here?
I'm assuming he was also attacking the PA system, but they didn't really show that part if that was the case.
I was a little confused in this one
I
too.
mean, maybe I was just confused
Yeah.
on
But
like
can we also just say that like this kid is like anything, does he? He doesn't like music. He doesn't like being like laughed at. Like I mean, I get like not being laughed at. That's obviously no one wants to get laughed at on that laughed at instead of laughing with. But this kid doesn't like piano music. Like that was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life. He's like, no, I don't want to hear that. Like, what do you like? Like,
Takashi had a very cringe reaction at the beginning
he
of
really
the
Yeah, barged into the store and started.
barged into the store and just started talking to people for playing music. Like,
That's-
why are you this petty? I don't understand. Who hurt you in life?
See,
And-
it's kind of implied that when Condigifer first showed up and kind of like linked himself to him, he made him a little bit more aggressive. But there were signs of him being like this before that.
That's what I'm saying. It's like you can't say that. Oh, it was the villain that made him evil. No, not made him evil. No, he was.
He was like that role before.
He was a
Yeah.
little
This is not 100% akin to, but the closest example I can give you from stuff that we've covered on this podcast is Jared and Dicey. Jared is already a dick before Dicey came along,
Yes.
but he only became worse when Dicey infected him. Same thing is true here.
It's one of those things that Anthony will probably agree with this because he's seen it. His counterpart in Quad S Gridman, Akane, is a lot better handled than he is.
Yes. Oh my god. I'd rather have her than this guy any day.
Yeah.
Because like I'm this is gonna be like a small itty bitty spoiler. I don't wanna like give away too much. It's like her name's Akane, right? I just want to make sure I remember her name
Yeah,
correctly.
Akane, yeah.
That's time I've seen her. I've seen the character. She was a lot more subtle with her intent. Like you would
Yeah.
not know what she's planning until after you see like what she does afterwards. Like
Yeah, because
she hides her emotions very well.
Yeah, she was a lot more interactive with the main cast.
Yep.
But to compensate, she didn't show her kind of twisted side in public.
Exactly. She was
And
able to hide. Like she was like a wolf in
and
sheep's clothing.
yeah, exactly. And that really would have helped this guy too a lot.
Exactly. Like I kind of wanted a Ken David, kind of like Ken from Digimon 02.
Yeah.
That would have been perfect. Like I'm gonna be friendly to you and like in front of you, but behind the scenes I'm gonna be like plotting and being evil and whatnot.
So speaking of Quad S Gridman, this episode is actually kind of important to the anime a little bit. You remember, Anthony, the kaiju girl who shows up midway through the show?
Yeah. I
This
know that. Mhm.
this monster who Gridman saves is her dad. This is who.
Oh wow! I
Yeah,
had no idea.
yeah.
That's crazy.
When she came back and said, "You helped save my dad," and I want to thank you for that. This is the episode she's referencing.
That makes perfect sense now.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I had watched this before I watched that anime,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, no.
It might have helped.
Quad S,
Might have-
yeah, I'm actually probably one of the few people that watched Quad S Gridman after this, and Quad S Gridman actually does reward you for having seen this show, because there's a lot of neat little tidbits sprinkled throughout that season that call back to this.
I might have to check that out then.
Yeah,
Quad S
Yeah.
Gridman is such a good show.
and the pacing is so well done too. Because like I said, it's
Yeah.
only 12 episodes, but you'll be like, oh wow, like it's
Yeah, and
wow for
it's probably one of the reasons why I prefer it over this, because Quad S Gridman does take a lot of writing cues from this show, but it's 12 episodes instead of 39, so it's paced a little bit better.
hmm And yeah, of course, the characters are more fleshed out in this one too.
Yeah.
I'd probably give this a 6, this episode, just because
Yeah.
it was kind of confusing.
I'll give it a 7 because it actually did something a little bit different with the monster.
I do want like another clarification, Pat. You might have already explained it, but
Yes.
I don't think I fully comprehended it.
Yeah.
Who was the sick who saved him at the end?
That is, they made mention of this throughout the episode about something of the spirit of the sound, who was like this like
Yeah.
little pixie thing that they said lived inside instruments, and if you had a pure of heart or something, you get a more full sound out of your instrument. That little pixie girl is supposed to be who that is. They just didn't explain that in the show too well.
No, they don't explain it at all. It was
Yeah.
very poorly done.
Yeah, I think they kind of meant for it to be like oh, is this who that is? But they didn't
Well, I
do a
think
good job of
it would
that.
have been helped if we had better subs.
Yes.
But I think also it'd be helped if they made it a two-parter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we only get like 2 of those in this season.
Yeah.
Multi-parters. And they're both pretty significant episodes actually. So
That's
but
fair.
yeah, this definitely could have used a little bit more explanation, because I like the idea of there being other inhabitants in the cyber world that can be manipulated. But this is the only time this is ever really done. And it's kind of I'm kind of annoyed with that.
Wow.
What ratings would you guys give this episode?
Probably about a 7.
I'm thinking a 6 or a 7 here, mainly
Yeah.
because it didn't explain really well anything going on. We were left to kind of defend for ourselves here a lot more, and I wasn't really a huge fan of that. I would like more explanation on what's going on so I can follow better. So, yeah.
Anthony?
I was gonna give it a 7, but since Takashi wanted to be a little douche about freaking music and just bars and people in the stores and just say, "Hey, playing that music," like, dude, you don't run stuff. Like, get out of here. So yeah, it's gonna sit just for that.
One of the things I also like about this episode, going back to Ippei's character, this kind of is the first time we really see him being a bit of a swindler. How he has this knack for trying to negotiate prices with people. Like he's working on a con man persona or something.
Do we want to move on to the next one now, guys?
Yeah, the next one should be fun to talk about.
Oh,
Yeah, I know Riz was
Yeah.
going to talk about this. So it's called 0 Second to Microwave Explosion. So in this episode, Yuka wants to bake a cake for someone, but Takeshi, okay, I don't think we mentioned this. This was established in the first episode, and it may have been brought up in another one, but it's definitely brought up here because it kind of ties to the main plot. Takeshi has a crush on Yuka, but she doesn't know that he exists. And in this episode, Takeshi decides, "Oh my god, this woman isn't gonna. This woman doesn't like me, but I'm gonna kill her or something like that." And he plans to kill her by using the monster of the day to rig her microwave to explode. It's You know what, Anthony? You were saying this in the Instagram chat that this guy seems like a future school shooter. I mean,
Yes.
in this episode, he kind of is a
He
school
already
shooter when you
is.
think about it.
I'm
like, oh,
I'm
shit.
It's not
glad
cool, but
I'm glad someone else said it before I did.
no, I was gonna say it when I got here too.
Yeah, I literally said I said it in the chat with on Instagram with Riz and Nick. I'm just like, hold up, wait a minute, this kid's kind of like a psychopath, like a girl.
Dude,
I'm just gonna
he
kill her, like dude, like no, stop.
okay, so I was okay with him being petty before for different things, like, oh, I hate music. I'm not gonna let y'all have music anymore. Um, in a later episode, he does something that's also really petty. We're gonna get there when we get there, but he all his motivations are based on pettiness, and I'm not a huge fan of that anymore.
Yeah,
Like he was such a good villain. Like you said earlier, Anthony, he's on track to being another Kin from Digimon,
Yeah.
but he kind of blows it by um just being very petty with everyone.
And it's funny you bring that up because another one of the slow burn story elements of the show is that Kondija first starts feeling the same way. As at the end of this episode, because the whole point is that he tried to convince Condigifer that inside that microwave oven was something that was gonna pinpoint his locations to give him so Condigifer could give him the okay to send the monster in there. But after they pull the monster out, Condigifer kind of catches on that he was bullcrapping him.
yeah.
This actually kind of bleeds into the rest of the show where Condigifer slowly starts getting irritated with him for being so petty. I'm not even joking. That's actually a storyline with that. So
That's actually very surprising. It's like he's even so annoying. That even the villains like, dude,
yeah,
you chill the f out. Like,
yeah, because Condigifer has his own goals, and he doesn't necessarily like to waste time and resources. And Takashi kind of starts doing that, obviously, and it gets on his nerves after. And he's I think he eventually starts trying to do stuff without Takashi knowing, just to try to get stuff done faster.
I mean,
the
I don't blame him because
Yeah.
he needs to go to cyber world.
like, and
Yeah.
he's a good villain. It's just that he's dealing with this clown.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
So
I think something I should have mentioned earlier, in episode 2, Digifer truly establishes the threat factor he has on the protagonist here.
mhm.
Like he's not just gonna, you know, idly say, "Oh, let me send a monster down. Let me screw the hero and just make his life miserable." No, he has a motive. He wants to get out of
Mhm.
here. He wants into the real world. He has a purpose. He has a plan. He has something he wants to do. And for for him to be stuck to Takashi, it's more of a hindrance than a help. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, he needs Takashi, so he's stuck relying on this guy.
Yep.
Yeah, and I can't remember exactly how it progresses going forward, but I do know that stuff comes of that.
Oh, I
Yeah.
would hope so. Because
And
Yeah, I really do hope that.
yeah, it gets pretty entertaining after a while, though, from what I remember.
I kind of get the feeling that there's also okay. Thankfully, it's not really touched upon. Like this isn't Jetman we're talking about, but like there is a little bit of like I don't want to say love triangle because these people are in high school, so it's kind of different. But like Ippei kind of hints that he has a crush on Yuka when he says they're like a married couple when shopping for cake supplies,
I
and
think that was
Yuka.
more of just a joking throwaway line.
Yeah, but I think Yuka has a crush on Naoto because I mean she
No,
makes
yeah,
him a cake,
yeah.
so that's
She tries
definitely
to
for
she
sure.
tries to pass it off as a thank you for him working so hard, working with alongside Gridman, but no, she does.
Yeah.
I figured it was too obvious. I was like, oh yeah, she's delegating.
Don't worry,
That's why
they don't go
Hey, like
full Gridman with it,
hey,
so don't worry about
yeah,
that.
because like, she gave Ippei like a small version of that cake, so like I knew for a fact like, oh yeah, she's into him.
Favoritism. You
yeah,
get a bigger
I mean,
slice.
we already knew that.
Yeah.
Like he tried so hard to pass it off as, oh, he's just a hardworking guy. I want to reward him, but Homegirl has a thing for her, and
Oh, girl.
Homegirl has a thing for him, man. I mean, it's fine.
Talk about spread the love.
I'd probably give this episode an A2. I found it entertaining, and I think I liked how, like, I feel like Yuka and Ippei kind of had a little bit more to shine in this episode, and I like it when they do that. So
Yeah.
actually I might up it to an 8.5. I don't usually do 0.5s, but I'm going to make an exception here.
That was good.
Yes, become one of me.
Yeah, I'll probably do the same as you, mostly because I liked it when Gridman cut the monster's face off.
Yeah, that
Dude,
was awesome.
I have thoughts I was gonna give at the end, but I just want to comment here. The the costume designs of the monsters make me laugh so freaking much.
How
Like they're
so?
so bad. They're so bad.
Yeah.
Like we're
What, like,
spoiled by good monster designs today, right?
Yes, we
But
are.
going back to there where they have like these, they're not claymation, I know that, but in some cases I feel like they're claymation.
yeah, the suits I think are more high quality, but that probably leads to them being a little bit over designed at times than the
Yeah,
Sentai suits of the era.
yeah.
But that
But
going
I'm
back to
gonna,
that point, yeah, going back to that point of Gridman cutting off his face, Gridman is brutal with some of these monsters.
dude, he cuts off tails, hands, faces.
Yeah, the one
Gridman
with
gives crap.
the one with the car, the monster was like a flying creature. He literally blasted his wings off in that one episode.
I'm out for blood. I'm not playing these games.
Yeah,
He
like
shows no mercy.
yeah, and I love that about him. He finds a chance to take a kill shot and he takes it.
Yeah.
This
Hey,
isn't like
that's how you're
Yeah,
supposed to do it, man.
good. I ain't that good.
yeah.
That's how you're supposed to do it, right?
Yeah. It's not like Sentai where it's like, okay, we're gonna stand around, we're gonna load this cannon up. Where'd he go? or something like that. No, Gridman's like, oh, he's got his back turned. I'm gonna cut off your leg.
Right. Nobody.
You like walking? Here, let me fix that for
Yeah.
you.
Right.
Well, it's not even that he's just cutting off random things. He's specific. The thing with wings, he cut off the wings. The one with sword for hands last time, he cut off the arms. This thing was breathing fire out of its mouth. He cut off his face.
Yeah.
He knows where to strike.
Well, I mean, Gridman's been doing this for assume a long time, right? Like
Yeah.
he didn't just start like a week ago. He's been at this for what I'm guessing is years, if not decades.
Yeah,
Maybe longer.
that has never been brought up even into Quad S Gridman. That's never explained how long he's been doing this.
Yeah,
It's just
so
kind of implied that he's really old.
yeah.
What were you guys going to give this episode?
Yeah, I was about to say an
Um,
8. or so, maybe.
I was gonna give an 8.
Anthony?
You know what? I'm gonna give it an 8.5. Not only for
Oh,
the fight itself, but the fact that Con Digifire was like, you lied to me. Okay, I'm punishing. Ah!
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't get enough of that. That was beautiful.
Yeah. That moves us to episode 8, Brothers Bond, where so the fire monster from the previous episode actually escaped, and Takeshi uses that monster, and then this new freezing monster called Blizzalar to hack into people's air conditioning systems, and sending people in either deep freeze or deep heat. And Daiichi, Naoto's brother, accidentally gets trapped inside, and he's almost about to freeze to death. First of all, I think this episode kind of really we've hinted this in a lot of episodes, but I think this one does the most, like where they hint at how really showing just how Naoto's life is difficult, because like they feel like, while Naoto is fighting the monsters, his parents think that he abandoned his brother. I think this series is doing a really good job at like kind of showing the dilemmas of being like a high school student and like being a teenager and living with your family, and but also not always, kind of seeming neglectful or something, which I really appreciate, because the thing is that as of the recording of this video, and it's probably going to be the case for a while, I'm actually currently watching Kozuko Sentai Turbo Ranger. A big thing, that's actually one of the first Sentais. In fact, it might be the first Sentai where the heroes are high school students, because all 5 of them are high school students. And I don't think that I mean, I like the characters. They're okay. It's not a bad series, but I don't think they do the best job at like addressing how these people have so much dilemmas with being high school students. And then you have series like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, where even though they're out fighting monsters all the time, they're apparently all like straight A students and all that, especially Billy. So
Yeah.
Mega Ranger does it a lot better, and we'll talk more about that when we actually review Mega Ranger, which is on our to-do list.
Yeah.
But I feel like Gridman is really handling that, being a teenager and hero, probably a lot better than I've seen most Toku series do.
And I think the best way I could compare this is the Spider-Man approach, where
Yeah.
he's trying to do the right thing by being a hero, but it interferes with his personal life so much that he's basically sacrificing like parts of his reputation to do what he needs to do. And of course, these guys know me better than anybody. Spider-Man is like my favorite fictional character of all time, and it's because of how I relate to him, and he's very motivational for me personally. So anytime a character kind of follows the Spider-Man-esque formula of struggling with trying to live 2 lives and stuff like this, I respect it and love it. And I think, for a tokusatsu show to do it this well, it's actually very I like it. It's a breath of fresh air compared to how other Toku shows handle this, because the only time I've ever seen a show even acknowledge something like this was in Shinkenger, where they addressed having to be pulled away from their lives to live at the Shiba house and how it affected their careers and stuff, especially with Ryosuke having to leave the Kabuki thing. But that was only like 1 episode.
it wasn't very Kondo.
Yeah, this is a continuous thing that happens throughout the season, and I welcome it wholeheartedly.
Riz, Anthony, you want to give any commentary? Anybody gonna? Don't everybody start speaking at once.
I'm just trying
I thought Anthony would go first, but I guess not.
I'm trying to figure out something. Like, I'm honestly kind of mad at Naoto for this, because like, even though he didn't intentionally try to leave his brother for dead, but like, you shouldn't have taught your brother. Like, I know you had your issue with your brother earlier. I know you didn't realize that. Oh, you know, the monster was gonna go after like the air conditioner or whatever, and freeze death. It's just like, dude, like the timing of that could have been a lot worse. Like you like,
I mean, kind of in
and I'm
Naito's
glad you
defense. Kind of in
apologized.
Naito's defense, he didn't know exactly what was going on because if he knew that they were affecting heating and cooling systems, he probably would have untied him first.
Well,
Exactly.
I think even one step further back, Patrick.
Mhm.
I think if Naito even realized that this is um, a cyber attack from the enemy,
Yeah,
he wouldn't have done anything at all. He would have just run off. But
yeah,
he, this is, I don't blame him for this. Like, I know it's a bad thing he did,
yeah,
but literally, you see all the time in the news, older sibling accidentally leaves kid unattended or something, and the kid drowns or whatever. Like, stuff happens.
hmm
But I don't blame him for it because in this case, it was just sibling
brothers be brothers.
rivalry gone wrong. Yeah.
If
I
you
mean,
have a
look,
brother, you get it.
it doesn't excuse what he
No,
did.
no.
It
Yeah,
doesn't excuse it, but it's just part of that bond or that life or I
yeah,
don't know, Pat.
and
You can explain
and
better. You have an actual brother.
yeah, and I like how at the end he's very apologetic and he tries to make it up
Yeah,
to him. And
Yeah,
and
and
that
I thought that was good.
he
yeah,
made up for that. I will,
yeah,
agree with him on that. He did make
like
up for it.
Natsu is a bit of a doofus at times, but he definitely means well.
Yeah.
I'd probably give this an 8 out of 10.
This was probably my favorite episode from this group, so I'd
Yeah,
probably give it a 9, just because
This
I can relate to this one a lot,
yeah.
especially being the older brother in the family. You do
Actually, the
something,
more I think about it, maybe I'll up it to a 9 too, because
yeah,
I was an older brother of a family. So yeah, I think you got a point.
But
yeah,
too,
because I've
I'm gonna give it
I've done things where I've gotten my little brother into problems, and then when it's like he gets lost or something, my God, you felt so guilty younger when something happened to your little brother that you could have
yeah,
prevented. Oh
Yeah.
God.
You said
It
8, Anthony?
I'll give it 8. Yeah.
Sorry, Patrick. I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, it's fine. It's fine. You Riz?
I am gonna give this an 8 because I don't have siblings. I'm an only child, so I don't have that level of understanding that y'all do. But also, I still greatly enjoyed what was going on here.
All right.
Enjoyed in the sense of like it was well written stuff. Not that I enjoyed seeing the kid freezing to death.
Mhm.
All right, moving on. Episode 9, Operation Evil Brainwashing. This is a simple episode. The new monster Shinobular hacks into the computers of Naoto's school and brainwashes his teacher and fellow students into doing evil stuff. It's a pretty stereotypical Saturday morning cartoon type of plot, but I found this to be entertaining enough, but I don't remember any big standout moment from it. What about you
Shinob
guys?
Shinobilar is probably my favorite. I don't think they have the names that Cyber Squad gave them, so I'm just gonna call them viruses. He's probably my favorite virus monster because he actually talks.
Yeah, Mike.
It-
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah,
Like,
and
yeah,
he
admit
does,
it's pretty.
and he actually does become one of the first monsters that we see later that gets completely revitalized. This isn't the only time we see him. Um, but the way he does like Shenaklo no Jutsu and crap like that, and talking and laughing at him and everything as a villain, painting.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the episode itself, it was just kind of, why did he walk in a Nazi like officer uniform into the classroom?
I have to say,
That was
why
insane.
did he write that?
Like, good
Yeah, I
grief!
was very confused by that.
uh,
Like, I have many questions on this episode, and one of them is Why the Nazi motif here?
Yeah, I don't know. This episode is really weird.
My second question is, I understand you're trying to exploit different technology in the 90s, but what computing thing are we using here to brainwash people into doing this stuff?
Yeah, that one, I always just assumed that he was doing it himself. But
Because like he
Well,
was in the computer. What
I
I
mean,
figured was he was like he went to the computer system. He's like showing this like he's brainwashing them from the screens. He's like I guess zapping them from his own I guess uh eyes or whatever. I'm not sure.
yeah, no, that wasn't explained worth crap.
no, not at all. But like, I don't know. This episode bugged me because it didn't make sense half the time.
Yeah.
It was entertaining, but still,
I think
it
the
bugged me.
the most notable thing out of this is that it kind of starts this thing of Ippei and Nato trying to better themselves in the education department.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
this
I mean,
is
go ahead.
because this episode kind of showcases them as being not the smartest people in the world. Like they're neglectful towards their studies, and they get ousted for it, which is kind of funny
That was
watching their parents freak out. seeing their-
Dude,
that was fun.
is that a real thing they do in Japan? Did they call out the lowest class of people?
No, that's why that was so funny, because that's not
Funny.
something they ever do. But because he was mind controlled, they did it to be, to cause some problems. But seeing the parents freak out and having them bolt out of the house was hilarious.
Like, oh,
It was.
Secondhand embarrassment. I kind of feel for them because I've
Now,
had instances like
I
that.
will say, I take some issue with after everything's said and done, their class rank is still so low overall, and on top of that, they build junk.
I mean, you can be good at a certain hobby or skill, but still not be good when it comes to book study.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's
maybe,
true.
but you have to have. Okay, so there's a difference between let me build a small desktop for me to, get on the internet, America Online or whatever was back in the day, and check out these web forums. That's what the computers were
Yeah.
capable of back then. They were very simple computers. And so for you to say these kids built a computer system that could house an alternate dimension entity in it called Gridman and can handle all the processing of all this stuff. That's not basic computing at this point. That's very high level stuff you're doing here. And for you to diminish that by saying, oh, yeah, two of the kids that did this are idiots, I don't buy it.
Well, we also didn't know what the heck that class was.
I mean, okay, if it was like basket weaving or something, I would understand. Okay, cool, they're not good at art or something.
Yeah.
But if it was like a math class or a science class, hell, even to a certain extent, some of the liberal art stuff like writing or English, I would expect them to be decent at. So I don't think this is portrayed realistically for the time.
Yeah. I mean, if they tried to squeeze in the excuse of the Gridman stuff is causing them to lose time studying, I would probably excuse it a little bit more. But
This, 100% this, what he just said.
yeah, but
But they
that's
don't
not
do
what
it.
they implied.
No, they're implying that these guys care more about video games and goofing off than studying, but that's not necessarily true here, is it?
Yeah, it needed a little bit more info on like what the class was and maybe some more personal life info to kind of bring it all
Well,
around. But
at this point, so I know I started this review podcast off by saying I don't mind not having character info, and I don't mind not having character driven story and stuff for this one season of stuff. But this is one case where I wish we had more,
Yeah.
simply because then we could understand better who the kids are and what's going on here. Like, it's hard for me to envision these kids, their intelligence, their background, their capabilities. When I'm getting conflicting information, on one hand, they're building a supercomputer, literally, and on the other hand, they're failing some high school level class. Like, maybe we can make the argument that Yuta is the smart one here. Yuka is the smart one. Sorry,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the other two are just kind of there for the ride. But that's not true, because you see a case where Ippei in an earlier episode toggled down the price of some technology. I think it was like a stick of RAM or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he was able to intelligently do it. And you don't just bargain a thing down without understanding what the thing is and being able to persuade somebody that, hey, the thing you have in your hand is not worth this because I know the value of it. If he knows the value of it, then he is smarter than they're making him out to be.
I mean, he was the one who like didn't he create the program for the sword?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
barrier shield was his too, and
And
Yeah,
he creates something in the next episode.
yeah, we'll see going forward too. He also creates both of Gridman's support vehicles,
yep,
which
Yeah.
are major players going forward in the season. And
yep.
so, yeah, I don't. Yeah, you actually bring up a good point. I didn't really catch on to that. This doesn't make much sense now.
It hurts my brain to think about it, because so many things that we've seen in the 8 episodes preceding this indicate that they're all smart in their own way.
Yeah,
But for them to be okay, if they're not the top of their class, that's fine. I would accept somewhere in the top 100, somewhere in the top 200. The top 1500? Are you kidding me? No, I don't buy that.
I'm probably going to give this. I don't know. I mean, you say this episode is confusing and it didn't really have much of an impact for me. I'd probably give it a 5, honestly.
yeah. This is the weakest one of the 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
What do you
then
guys give this, you said?
can I also say something real quick?
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
In this episode, Ippei encounters one of the students that had the highest grade or whatever. He is also brainwashed too. And it was just a really awkward scene of him like trying to stop the dude from like stealing the manga that was at the store, and him getting punched and then like hitting the guy with this like book bag. It was just kind of like really awkwardly like shot with him getting hurt. I don't know. It was just throwing me off a little bit. I was like, why did he hit him like that? It was just, I don't know.
Everybody else, what do they want to give?
Nah, we're good.
I'm giving it a 5. I mean, actually, no, I'm gonna give it a 4 because it just was not a good episode to me.
I want to give this like a 2, honestly, because first of all, I didn't like the way the characterized Ippei and Naoto. That's strike 1. Strike 2, the brainwashing makes no sense.
Yeah.
Strike 3, nothing really entertaining is happening here, so it gets a little boring after a while.
Yeah.
The monster was literally the only highlight of this episode, and even
Yeah,
that
he
can say.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, this is the weakest link for me. Which is fine, because the next episode was one of the stronger points to me.
Yes.
Yep. And that allows us to move on to the final episode we're going to cover in this podcast for those back home. The Dangerous Gift, episode 10, where in this episode, the latest monster infiltrates the city's water line and hacks into it, turning the entire water supply into hydrochloric acid. And once again, I really have to comment on why Takeshi does this. Once again, we get a dumb thing where he tries to use a water fountain and it like splashes him in the face, and like and he gets water all over himself, and a bunch of kids laugh at him, and he's like, "Oh my god, this water wronged me! I'm gonna destroy the world's water supply!" Like,
Dude.
this guy is crazy. Um, the big thing that happens here is that Ippei actually designs 2 new weapons. Well, not weapons, support vehicles for Gridman, including this red jet type of vehicle called the Thunderjet, and a drill vehicle with 2 drills on it called the Twin Driller. And he and Yuka actually control them using like these video game controllers through junk, and they use them to help Gridman, which is pretty cool. I'm actually kind of intrigued to see how these support vehicles will play later on in the series. I actually really like that, and I think it also kind of gives Yuka and Ippei something to do. It kind of reminds me of maybe Anthony can help me out here. You remember in Kamen Rider Forze there was like a robot.
That giant mecha they use, like I think one of the students used it. I think what's his name used it often.
Yeah, I can't remember, but like I liked that aspect because like it kind of I want to say like maybe makes the solo hero thing a little bit less, and gives the other characters who may not have the ability to transform something else to do. It reminds me of, hold on, other people can give their commentary on this. I need to figure this out now because that's going to drive me crazy.
So I'm gonna give my thoughts real quick, and then once y'all are kind of gone, I have questions for Patrick.
Right.
Okay. So I actually really like this episode a lot. I thought the water supply hacking was a good use of the Gridman storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It hits home. There's a lot of drama for the families to deal with, and it leads for some very interesting things. I also, like Nate said, I really love that for the first time, Yuka and Ippei are able to take part in a fight, at least in some way. Because prior, all they did was design the weapon, send it over, and Gridman did everything else. They were like a glorified Alpha and Billy up until this point.
Yeah, by the way, just on that subject matter, the robot in Forza was called the Powerdizer, and it was piloted by a bunch of different students, but primarily from the main character Shun. Just wanted to bring that up. That was driving me crazy. Sorry to cut you off, Riz.
No problem. Yeah, so I just enjoyed seeing the characters doing something beyond what they normally do.
Yeah, and more is going to come out of these two because there's actually a third vehicle to this set that we'll get introduced to in a couple episodes. And during the next batch of episodes, we're going to get introduced to God Xenon and the Thunder Gridman combination, which comes out of these.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering at this point, like, more prior to episode 10, how they were going to sustain a 39 episode thing where the basic plot is, hey, let's have Gridman come in and mop the floor with these guys using some random new weapon. Like, that was a trend I was starting to pick up on is episode begins, Takase gets mad about something, he creates a monster to let us frustration. Gridman tells Naota let's roll. They go out, they get your ass kicked. The support characters create a new weapon, give it to them. Gridman magically defeats the enemy, and that's it. I was getting worried that it would get stale after like another 10 episodes of this, but then having Thunderjet and Twin Driller come in, it kind of gave something new and unique to carry us forward for at least a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and with them and the one that comes after them, with the one that comes later, Dyna Dragon, it keeps the other two a little bit more involved in the fights. So the two of them aren't going to be sidelined very much after this, which is good. Because I'm okay with the solo hero thing, but if you've got 3 people, let all 3 of them do something.
Yeah, because the thing, when you think about this in comparison to like Kamen Rider, at least over time, typically the side characters get their own Kamen Rider belt for at least a little while,
Mm-hmm.
or they contribute in some way, like they do something.
So what was this question you wanted to ask me?
Okay, so you have seen the American adaptation, correct?
Yes, I've seen Cyber Squad.
Okay, the extent of my knowledge of Cyber Squad begins and ends with Matt Lawrence is the protagonist, and somehow so Matthew Lawrence is Gridman in the American adaptation,
Yes.
but then he has a bunch of friends,
Yes.
and they take on the spirits of the Thunderjet and Twin Driller and whatever else comes after. I think
Yeah.
like they control those things in the world, like they're transported in and take over there.
Yes.
Okay. The Are the first couple of episodes like this where they don't come in, or is it from the get go that they're all able to transport themselves to the cyber world?
Are we talking about in Cyber Squad?
Yeah,
Yeah, in Cyber Squad, they're just inherently able to just go in and pilot the vehicles directly.
but like, does it happen around this point in time in the season as well? Is what I'm wondering.
So funny you should bring that up because remember I mentioned that I was talking about this earlier with Cyber Squad, how it ended up having more episodes than Gridman, even though Subaraya themselves directly worked on it.
Mhm.
Uh, God Xenon and Thunder Gridman get introduced in the next batch of episodes, and then Dyna Dragon and King Gridman get introduced a little bit later after that. But Xenon, Drago, and then the 2 forms, what Synchron and Formo, I think is what they were called. They were introduced almost immediately, and they were used simultaneously with one another, which is not something here.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why they chose to do that. Because they chose to adapt episodes pretty close to the Gridman ones, just with the Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, like real life scenes instead, a mixture with the Gridman footage. But they didn't have build up to things in Cyber Squad. They just kind of just dumped everything at once.
Yeah,
Like, I think they kind of implied that Servo brought those things with him.
the weapons.
Yeah, like the sword, the 2 support vehicles, and everything he brought with him.
And
So
that's interesting.
yeah,
And then my other thing was, okay, so I lied. I know 3 facts about Cyber Squad. The third fact I
Tim
know
Curry.
is that, huh?
Tim Curry voices Condigifer's counterpart somehow.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I've
don't
heard
know.
about that.
Yeah, I don't know how they got him for what they did, and Kilo Khan is amazing to watch because of that.
So my other fact that I know that differs from Gridman is these are not like computer nerds. They didn't build a junk or whatever. They're in a band. They play music.
Yes, Servo uploads himself into Sydney's personal computer at his house, at Sam's house. And it's just a regular computer. This whole thing of junk being a mess and it's about to explode and Gridman's longevity is kind of tied to it is never used in Cyber Squad because she's basically using a Microsoft or something, a gateway
Right.
or
And
something.
and that's what I was kind of curious about is how they play that off because
Well, no, it's never acknowledged. Servo's blue emergency light thing just kind of goes off as like a sign of him on the verge of being defeated. and that's the extent of it.
All right.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of the fights a lot less intense in Cyber Squad because of that. But yeah, I don't know. It's an odd US adaptation
Yeah.
that I think we should just jokingly look at one time just for the fun of it because it's kind of stupid.
Man, I kind of want to actually because I want to see Matt Lawrence in action. That's the only reason I want to watch it.
Now,
I'll
come
be
on,
honest.
you want to see evil Tim Curry too? Don't lie to me.
I mean, maybe, but Matthew Lawrence playing a tokusatsu hero. That's not something I knew I needed when I was in elementary school. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, and Takashi's counterpart Malcolm he's a character in his own.
Yeah, and by the
he is
way,
indeed a character. Huh?
the only reason I know any of these factoids I just gave you is because I watched the opening of Cyber Squad, like the intro.
Super him, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I watched. That's all I know is from the opening. And I watched the opening like right before I got on this call with you guys.
Oh God.
Oh Lord.
The era of early '90s toku, Western toku intros.
Like I want to watch it just because all this stuff. It looks entertaining, but I also know it's gonna be terrible.
It's good. It's bad in a good way, if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I get it.
it's
Yeah.
stupid to the point where it's entertaining. Especially seeing how his partners aren't like smart girl and goofball girl. You have Sam, who's just generic main character. You have Sydney, who's the girly tech is. You have uh Amp. I know that's his name. Who names their kid Amp? Who's the jock? And then Kanker, who's just Kramer Jr. And that's not even
Oh
an
God,
That's not even an over exaggeration. It's like a young Kramer
Kramer
from
Jr.
Seinfeld. Yeah,
Dude,
like Kramer from Seinfeld. He looks like him and he acts like him.
where did they find these people in the '90s?
Don't ask me. You'll see it if we ever choose to do Cyber Squad. Kanker, yes, that is his name. Kanker is just a young Kramer, and it's yeah.
Do we want to give any more thoughts? I think. Well, okay. Let's talk. Like, what do we? I think we've kind of covered how we feel about the villains. I mean, there's not much to talk about with Khan Digifer, and we've all kind of established that we think Takeshi is just a really insane dude. So,
Yeah.
Putting it lightly there.
Do we want to give any more thoughts on our main three, Naoto, Ippei, and Yuka?
Not really. No.
There's not much we can really say now.
I mean, it's been very subtle with them. Like we know enough about them to be able to. I mean, I feel like we already know more about these three than we did about the three Geki Rangers up to this point, which is.
Don't get me started.
I mean,
Why would you say that?
I mean, hey, you're not the only one that wanted to take another jab at Geki Ranger before I fully move on from it.
I'm not done giving jabs. It's gonna be a constant thing for a couple episodes at least.
But I mean, I like them. There's nothing super extravagant about them, but they're relatable.
I mean,
At
okay,
least to me, they are.
they're fine characters. There's nothing spectacular like. They're not deep like the Sinkins. They're not badass like the Gokais.
Yeah.
They're just standard tokusatsu characters that live in this world and they do their thing. And honestly, that's all I can ask for at this point.
Yeah. And honestly, I kind of see this as a pro to Gridman's favor because Sentai has this. It's a problem I've kind of had with Sentai as I've started watching more of them, it seems like the main teams have to be like grandiose in some way. And it's one of the things that I think I like about Mega Ranger a lot is that though in Mega Ranger they're treated like people, when in other things they're treated like, oh, they're ancient warriors or something like that. And they can't just be they can't just be people.
The villains, you mean?
No, the main characters.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They can't just be people. Like in Jetman, they kind of were people, and that was kind of the appeal. But like Zoo Ranger, they're warriors from like billions of years ago, and Gokaiser, they're space pirates, and Shinkenger,
I
they're
feel like there were a couple of Sentai that they do that. Like, I feel like they were just people in Mega Ranger.
yeah.
I mean,
And that's
Zetman
why I
was
specifically
people.
called that one out.
Yeah.
We covered Zetman, and they're very just run-of-the-mill people that were
Yeah,
doing
that's why I kind of gave that one a bit of the exception, because for the most part that was the case. But they still they were on a military base or something like that. Like it had to be some kind of grand organized or like some kind of uniform thing where they have like in the case of the Zoo Rangers, they run out and they have, or the Geki Rangers, so we just saw them, they had like scratch outfits that they had to wear around. No, like they're just people here.
Yeah.
And it's actually refreshing to me. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels that way, but
No, I definitely feel that too. I definitely agree with that.
yeah, they feel more true to reality type of characters than what we've been getting with Sentai. And to go back to the Spider-Man comparison, I love that about him, and I love that about these guys. Yeah, like you said, there's something brand about them, but sometimes that's good.
And that's what I was saying from the beginning here is that
Yeah.
there's nothing grand about them. There's nothing spectacular about
Mhm.
them. They're standard toku, but they get the job done and they're entertaining and they deliver a decent experience. Like we're all
Yeah.
having fun here.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think if we were to give a rating for the first 10 episodes as a whole, we would oscillate between a 7 and an 8, depending on who we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Mhm.
For example, I think Anthony will give a 7, but I think the rest of us probably give an 8.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'll give it an 8.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not going to say 8.5 just because, I don't know. I'm starting to like this 0.5 stuff, so I'm going to do that.
I've broken him.
My new grading system is implemented now.
All right, I'm gonna also give it an 8.5 just to be like Nathan because I
Yeah.
agree. It's a good season. It's
It's a
after
nice change of
after
pace.
after
Mhm.
2 seasons of crap. It's nice to have something fun that I can enjoy and not be yelling at.
And I did want to ask you about this because the era of Sentai, like we said, the season was airing alongside Die Ranger, which was probably one of the better choreographed seasons of its time in terms of
Mhm.
Sentai. But Sentai seasons usually had like janky cutaways and reusing footage for fight scenes. How are you guys feeling about the fight scenes in this show so far?
Um, there is a lot of cutaway stuff that's reused over and over again,
Yeah, but it's not.
like the Henson sequence and
No, I mean like, you know, in Jetman where they tried to do like the punches where they would like loop the same animation of them like jumping and flying towards them to add like a sense of impact and stuff. They don't do stuff like
Yeah, I
that. Like
think so.
everything is kind of like one straight shot. Like when they do flips, they don't like when Gridman does flips, they actually show him do the acrobatics on screen, landing and everything. But in Jetman, if they did those flips, they had to do like a ground looking up shot to see them jump over the camera to kind of mimic it. Like the choreography is more uh fluid, and I think it makes them more entertaining, especially with more dynamic camera angles than we're used to. So I don't know if that was something you guys were like into with them being more engaging or something, because I like them a lot more than Even some of the more modern Sentai fight scenes.
I think I agree with you. That was all good. The only complaint I might give is the scenes felt like too much was going on at one time. Like just the visual effects we were getting, it just felt like a lot going on. It was kind of distracting at some points, but it's not a huge problem. Like
Like how?
a very minor nitpick. Like I think too colorful and too many things in the background to keep an eye on.
Oh, the cyberspace background. I don't know. I actually kind of like that.
Exactly.
It's
No, I
better than
liked
a.
it too, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying it was really busy. Like
I'll
me
take
being
that
a
over.
nerd, I wanted to look around and see like all the stuff in the background, but I know I'm gonna
Oh,
miss
you
a
were
lot.
distracted by how in detail it was.
Yes.
Okay. That I do
I'm
agree
not
with.
I'm not saying it's bad by any means. I'm
Yeah.
just pointing out that me being a nerd, I was very engulfed, and I know I missed a lot of small nuance that probably the creators put in there for people like me.
But they do a good job of making you want to walk on that set for a little bit. Huh.
Yeah, I'd love to go hang out for a day.
Yeah, just walking around in the
Yeah, that'd be
cyberspace.
awesome.
Wouldn't it?
Do we want to give anything else, guys? I mean,
No.
all I can say is that I'm looking forward to a scene where this goes, especially since the last episode where we end up with like the Thunderjet and the Twin Driller. I think that was a good way to stop, but
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued by like what will happen later on.
Yeah.
My last thought here is thank God Naoto, Ippei, and Yuka are not Zon.
Right.
Yeah.
Also,
It's-
have I mentioned in the last hour and a half how much I hate Zon?
Maybe
No,
if
I had
you-
no idea.
Really? This is
If you
news
don't
to
know
me.
my
I didn't
thoughts
know
on
that.
this, please go to our Geki Ranger review and you'll understand.
I'm glad the season's leaving a good first impression on you guys so far.
Were you worried it wouldn't?
Yes, actually. I was kind of worried that you guys would find the season to be a little bit too bland. And
I mean,
I'm fine with it just because I understand. Like, I mean, if I had been watching this if I had been watching nothing but Super Sentai, then maybe I would have a bit of an issue with it. But kind of just after watching Kamen Rider for the first time so many years ago and seeing how that series has a change in format compared to Sentai, I just kind of realized that like not every tokusatsu series is going to have the same format as Super Sentai. So I'm
Yeah.
open to seeing that stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, the one thing I will comment here, I feel it very unfortunate that the side characters Ippei and Yuka don't have a chance to go hop into the world and help in person. Like in the Kamen Rider's world, you can sometimes see the co-characters or like side characters, do something, get involved, suit up, whatever. And there's a team dynamic there, like a collaboration. And Sentai, I mean, the entire premise of Sentai is based off of teamwork and collaboration. So not having it here was kind of odd for a little bit in the beginning. Like it was a weird adjustment to make, but it's not overly that difficult to get over,
Mhm.
Anthony, you want to add anything?
Uh, Not necessarily. Like I said, I already said my piece already. I'm on, overall.
Yeah, it's definitely left a great impression on me. I mean, maybe at some point we could also look at the sequel series if it's available. But I'd like to finish up this series and just get my overall thoughts before we decide on that.
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
do Quad S in one episode because it's only 12
That's
episodes.
Gridman better.
Oh,
that's easy.
okay. That's notable.
It's a
So-
seasonal. It's a seasonal anime, so it's very short. So you can
Okay,
easily
so what
make
I'm
that one
hearing,
episode.
so what I'm hearing is after we finish this review series, we're gonna do the sequel and then move on to Zero Ranger.
I mean, we could.
Hmm.
Just get all the Gridman out the way first. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, we could possibly do that. Anybody else want to give any closing thoughts?
Nope.
Nope.
All right. Well, that's about it for this podcast. Thank everybody for joining us. Next time we'll take a look at episodes 11 through 20 and Gridman. We will be, which means that we'll have like 3 more videos of this because this series is 39 episodes long. So this won't take up as much time as like some of our Sentai reviews. But we hope you guys enjoy this. We definitely, if you guys want us to cover, hopefully this will actually, for people who listen to us, this will actually show that we're willing to cover stuff besides Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. So if you have any other tokusatsu series that you'd like for us to briefly look over, please leave comments down below in the YouTube comment section if you're watching this on YouTube. We do want to stress that we do take everyone who leaves comments down below. We do take. We are reading your comments, and we do take those into consideration. We may not get to what you ask for immediately, but a lot of what's been asked of us is actually on our to-do list. So we will get to those ideas. I just wanted to stress that really briefly. But please check us out at. Were you going to say something, Riz?
Yeah, I was gonna say, for instance, somebody asked for a Geki Ranger and we covered it. You're welcome.
And somebody actually asked us to review Flashman, and that is actually on our to-do list, because as someone who finished watching that series late last year, I can see why people love it so much. So
Yeah,
that and Live Man are the 2 show era seasons I consider mandatory for us to cover here.
good. Flashman was one of the seasons I wanted to watch anyway. So
Yeah.
awesome.
But yeah, hopefully that will all. Just know we do take your comments into consideration. Please check us out at animesecrets.org and check us out on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. We also like to thank everybody who gives us a listen on either iTunes or Spotify. We love all you guys there. Once again, we thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will catch you guys next time when we take another trip into cyberspace with Gridman. But until that time, we will see you later.